Hey everyone. Okay, so let's just jump right into talking about Kuma. And the one thing I really want to zero in on with him specifically is how Kuma could have so easily become the villain of his own story. Like, Kuma's life was quite literally cursed, but by nature of his birth of being a buccaneer, like that he was like practically born into slavery to the point where it's literally all he knew in his childhood. Like the kind of experience that has on a child would break them, and it did in fact, and it did break Kuma in a sense, but in a very sick and twisted way. This this experience, I think, allowed Kuma to come out the other side, both emotionally stronger and resilient. Like it could have been so easy for Kuma to give in to the despair, the anger, the hatred, the loathing at a world that would do this to him, yet he still kept a grip onto hope, and it's through that, as well as the words and unconditional love of his parents and his father's stories of Nika, that really allowed Kuma to push forward, and it's what until that first that one ray of hope had finally appeared in the form of Ivankov and a mystery girl who came in to save him, and basically show there are still good people in this world despite all the shit he's been through. And but that and already all of this is already like painting all of this all the beginning portion all of these beginning portions we've already got is already painting a more clear picture of who the real Kuma was under the mystique we've gotten from the character at this point. And I want to go into so much more, but I'm gonna have to bite my tongue here simply because any further discussion will require me to go into spoiler territory and basically ruin everything else with this flashback. Because yes, there is so much more than that we have yet to see of Kuma's past. But all I will say to cap this portion off is that that brief little flashback Bonnie has, remembering Kuma telling her the story of Nika and dancing like him as she's about to be executed. That scene of them like dancing together was handled beautifully. In fact, I think I like how, in fact, this is one of those times where I think I like how the anime handled just that one small scene between Kuma and Bonnie leagues and bounds over the manga, and a lot of it is simply because of the art style. That sort of sketchy pencil work with subtle splashes of colored pencil, like it really crafted that vibe of a happy but somber memory, and it reminded me a lot of those like old like of those very sketchy like snowman commercials in a weird way, like those commercials you see with the snowman, and I think like Coca-Cola or some shit like that, or soup or something. Like it just has this kind of warm but somber feeling to it. Now, the end of the episode, again, it introduces us to two characters, one we're very familiar with at this point, a younger Ivankov. So yeah, Ivankov wasn't kidding when he said he was friends with Kuma, as they've known each other since they were children. But even more so than that, like Ivankov's introduction to this flashback really shows from way back when even way back when he already had those fires of rebellion burning in him long before joining the revolutionaries, but in a way showing that he truly is one of the more like one of the more like but one of the more influential figureheads of the organization. Like a lot of what in like I'm not saying it was only him. Like Dragon himself also had more of a part to play, just from how influential and how influential he was as a leader. But with Ivankov, you can really see just how you almost can kind of see through Ivankov's eyes how the revolutionaries became who they were, just how they were. And we also, but of course, on top of Ivankov, we also get introduced to another character. And for anyone who's wondering, no, it's not a coincidence that this character shares similarities to Bonnie. But I will say this as well. It's complicated, which I know is the most on-point statement, most vague on-point statement for a series like One Piece. But again, it's one of those things where I can say that yes, this pink-haired girl does grow up to become Bonnie's mother, but it's the circumstances by which Bonnie was conceived that make it so hard in order for me to go further into detail. Like I have to bite my tongue here, otherwise it would literally ruin things for any anime only viewers. That's how difficult just this little snippet of backstory is to talk about, because Kuma's past in a lot of ways is some of the most intricate crafted bits of backstory writing I've seen, not just from Oda but maybe manga and fiction in general. Like the way Oda so intricately and smoothly like crafts Kuma's backstory, it's generally kind of amazing. Like I know we've glazed Oda back and forth in the One Piece community, but this backstory specifically, it is some of Oda's best work. Like even more so I think than I think like Robin's backstory. Frankly, like that story is amazing, but it's like this is an example. Like this backstory is an example of how you tie so many loose plot threads together in such a seamless way. That's just the best way I can say it. And yeah, let's talk about the other major thing with this episode, which is that the episode also sees the start of the World Nobles triennial hunting competition, and already just from the simple setup of this event, we're seeing so much of how this one singular event was kind of the linchpin to events that would go on to form the state of the world as it exists today. Like, in many respects, God Valley is where the story of One Piece began, and in saying that, I want to share an interesting theory that I hadn't thought about until now, which is that after watching Totally Now Mark's review of Egghead Arc, there is a theory apparently out there that potentially God Valley is actually what what we've come to know as Thriller Bark. And at first, I kind of outright dismissed it, like, okay, Mark, now you're kind of reaching. But the more I watched the video, the more I listened to what Mark had to say on the subject, and him going through like the list of evidence of both being islands from the West Blue, the numerous famous faces that would become part of Moria's zombie army during the Thriller Bark arc, and also coincidentally dying on God Valley. And more importantly, there's also a lingering question out there in the present day of why Perona has suddenly taken interest in reuniting with Moria. Like, just that question, like, I guess you could say that Perona was just, like, one of the more faithful of his crew at the time, but even then, like, it's kind of hard to ignore that there might be some weird, very loose connection there in the side plot of Perona trying to find Moria. Like, something is there to do with God Valley. Although the question exactly where does God Valley fit into the present day and what purpose it'll serve, that's another question entirely. Now, because if Thriller Bark and God Valley are the same, then God Valley isn't really even an island anymore. So, like, yeah, what purpose could that serve now? Now, another major character that gets introduced in this episode is a younger Figureland Garling, and before we knew him today, and I'm not gonna lie, this is one of the more stranger parts of the episode for me, because seeing him that young, and especially given what I know now about his affiliations, needless to say, seeing him not resemble a certain character as much as I thought he would, especially in hair color, was a little bit jarring to me. But I guess it wasn't expected that he would look exactly like these characters either. More importantly, though, we also get introduced to another familiar face, J Garcia Saturn was apparently there all those years ago as well, and getting all these, and this is one of the interesting things about this episode, getting all these different characters and familiar faces introduced into this backstory shows just how kind of linked these many disparate threads are and how much they all connect back to Kuma. Before even officially meeting each other, Saturn was seemingly keeping a close eye on him before even before even ordering him to become the government's pet project. So you can bet that even back then, Saturn took a particular interest in those with the Buccaneer lineage and wanting to either control it or stamp it out. Before, which in itself exposes just how, I think, afraid he is personally of any and all ties to Nika, more importantly. Like compounded even more by how quick he was to the draw and trying to kill Luffy before the flashback even hit. Like, yeah, like underneath all the menace of Jay Garcia, there's almost this like fear that the man exhibits of like he hides it well under his menace, but he is clearly afraid of any ties with Nika. And I guess even more on another note, one thing that especially stuck out to me with this episode is if you notice, Jay Garcia hasn't aged even after all those years. So it's like the man and especially the five elders, they're definitely immortal to some extent. The question is again where that immortality comes from, because the only thing that makes sense about this anymore is that it's a power that Imu gave to them. But if that's the case, then that just begs the question of where Imu got his power from, because the initial one was that Imu got his power from the Appa. Their immortality from the Appa fruit. But that, but it just kind of branches off into a whole bunch of other questions of like, how how are how are the elders immortal? For example, like how do they gain their immortality if the Appa fruit was the thing that gave Imu his? So yeah, but a bunch of questions, and I don't even know the answers to a lot of these, frankly. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe for Blue Sky, and on Crunchyroll, Vision Fiction Bell, subscribe button, and just share the video, guys. Dark Knight Running, signing off. Later, everyone.